wanted to start off with, well, hang on just a second here. Okay. Okay, starting live now. Okay, we should be live, but I don't see it. Yeah, it says we have one. Okay. All right, so we made it. All right, folks. Hang on a second. Okay. Sorry, folks. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong when you're live. I have Tobin on the phone. Tobin's going to be talking to us here in a few minutes. But one of the things I wanted to do before we start is, with Hurricane Michael down in, just made landfall today. I understand that there are already some deaths involved, and just hope everybody will maybe say a prayer for those folks down there tonight. It's pretty devastating. If you've never been through a flood or anything like that, let me tell you, it's not pleasant. So anyway, with that, what I wanted to do tonight is bring somebody in. I know we tried this last week, but the individual just didn't make it. Okay, folks, hang on just a second. We might have a little bit of difficulty here. If somebody wants to drop a comment so I know that you guys are receiving the feed. Okay. 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 Well, I seem to have the live feed up here. Yeah. Okay. Loud and clear. All right, Andy. Thanks. Appreciate that. Um, yes. Sorry, folks. I guess you can, if you can hear Tobin in the background here on the phone, please drop a comment. Let us know that he's loud and clear as well. All right. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate that. So, Tobin, there you go. Oh, Woody, no, I'm sorry. I didn't see the mail, but you know what? I'll check. I'll make sure that I check as soon as we finish here. I appreciate it. All right, good. Thanks, Andy. I'm glad you can hear Tobin as well. All right, so anyway, back to that. Tobin's a commercial photographer. Tobin, I'll let you, excuse me, talk about exactly what it is you do. I just wanted to throw out there right at the beginning, he is a recent purchaser of the Nikon Z7. He's familiar with all brands of cameras. He's been in the commercial world, I guess, Tobin, for about 2 decades, but in photography just about all your life. Is that correct? All right. All right, great. All right, that sounds good. I know that people are going to have questions, and I think the comparison here is going to be between what you're shooting now and the Z7. And basically, what are your feelings about this camera? And is it a camera that's going to replace or could replace others for commercial photography, or at least for what you're doing? So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you give a little background on what you do, and we'll open it up in the chat room and let everybody ask any questions they have. So Tobin, it's all yours. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, it's a great camera. Yeah, I hear nothing but good things about the G Master lenses. Yeah, that's been a question of a lot of people lately on the Z7 with the 35-1.8 and the 24 to 70 f4. The only two lenses that are available right now that are native to the Z line, and a lot of people are adapting. I know you said you've done that with the Z7 so far too. Mm. Yeah, they don't have a profile for the Z series yet, do they? Well, we had talked earlier, and you said that you were going to do some more testing. As soon as you have Capture One, I mean, you can use Capture One. You were going to do some more testing and some other testing. Right now, I think there's a problem. You said that you could open the, was it the NEF files or the RAW files? Or, right, everybody else is as well. That's good. I think that there is. I think that it does mention, just like the Canon. I think Canon talks about it down at down to what is it? I think their claim was 6 EV low light focus with or minus 6 EV focus with a 1.2 aperture lens. So you know, of course, all that's marketing, right? I mean, for Nikon, it's the same thing. It's just marketing. When they, you know, the ISO goes up to 104,000. Well, you know, nobody's using that. Well, I take that back. There may be an application for that, but not in the general photography world. Right. No. Yeah. Back and forth. Right. 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 Mm. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hang on, folks. Sorry about that, folks. Running off bus power for my recorder and mixer, and I have no idea why it dropped the audio. Sorry about that, Tobin. You still here? My minimalist studio here. I'm still fighting battery power on everything. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Sorry we interrupted you there. Yeah, and you know, this again is a lot of people that are wanting. Um, they have their expectations of what they want in the camera. Maybe they're coming from another camera, a D850 or you know a D5 for the sports, wildlife, action photographers, and they hope that the Z7 would have the same capability. And in the D850, I mean, I think we got IQ image quality with the photos, but it still might not have some of the things that the D850 has, and some of those expectations aren't met. And You know, you have all kinds of people. Some people are like, okay, that's the way it is. Others just want to go on a rampage and bash the camera. And I'm not saying that the Z series are perfect, but that's some of the things that we're gleaning from what you're talking about here is, you know, there are going to be some shortcomings, but you know, focusing down to -6 EV, you know, if the Canon can do that, that's fantastic. And if the Nikon Z, the Z7 doesn't make it to 3 or 4 EV or total darkness, so be it. But so anyway, hang on just a second, Tobin. What are you talking about? Nikon Capture NXD. Okay, so it's already got it's already loaded with the Z7. So you updated last week. All right. So it's free download for work on the raw files. So there is one workaround. I know, Tobin, you're just waiting for Capture. Yeah, Capture. Yeah, to add that profile, and then you're gonna play with it a little more. And really looking forward to seeing that. And if you don't mind, if you'll share some of those photos, we'll make sure that we get them out on one of these videos or in a live stream. Yeah, Andy. Yeah, dropped our audio. Andy said that's a wrap. Yeah. All right. No, you should see them. Everybody that sees the feed should have the chat room, a live chat box come up on the right side of the screen there. Well, I'm a Luddite, so you know. Oh, okay, okay, good. Yeah, by all means, keep an eye on those if you want, and if you can jump in and answer a question. So if anybody has any questions right now, rather than us just rambling on, Tobin will keep talking about the camera. But if you have any specific questions, it may be something that he can answer. It may not because he just hadn't gotten to that. It's good Kentuckian, by the way. Yeah, I'm hearing that from a lot of people in the reviews, but I've just recently seen a few people talking about because the autofocus is different in it and there's a new menu selection for autofocus. So some were complaining, you know, how dare them and, you know, it's so difficult and this and that and whatever. And I could see that with a new user going to a new menu system, but for a Nikon shooter, if it's just something, I don't know, I don't have my hands on it. You can talk about that maybe. Is it really that difficult? No, I get that. Well, that kind of helps settle that argument. People are always talking about, well, how many megapixels do we need? And for most things, we probably don't need a lot of megapixels. But in your work, obviously, it makes a considerable difference. Well, that and the distance to the actual photograph or the whatever it is. Right. Right. Well, I think that it is. I think that it is a bit different. I mean, in the way the different modes for autofocus, everything that I got from the manual, looking at the manual, it is a little bit different. But I mean, is it so different that we're just going to say, well, the camera's no good or whatever? And those are some of the things that I've been complaining about. Is everybody jumps on the bandwagon when somebody finds something that doesn't appeal to them or whatever, or it might be a little more difficult or whatever, then we're back to Nikon's dead. What were they thinking, and so on and so forth. But I think that some people do see it as being a little bit difficult in the menu for autofocus and all the different focus, not just focus modes, but what am I talking about here, folks? The screen, whether it's group or large group or pinpoint or normal. And that's just something you get used to and figure out what you want for your particular photography, I guess. But anyway, it's just every day somebody's going to find something else to nitpick that doesn't suit them. But how about the camera overall? I mean, how does it compare to what you're shooting right now? And that's what made pro bodies convenient too. And then with the touch screen, it's just touching them, correct? I think one of the complaints there will be it's not so intuitive at night or whatever, where you could just, you knew where all the buttons were, you could feel them. It was that tactile approach to being able to adjust this or that without ever taking your eye from the viewfinder, maybe. I don't know. So it may be not as convenient, but Oh, that's right. It's all in the EVF, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Right. 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 Okay. Okay. Right. Yeah. I could see that being the bigger problem, trying to figure out what you want to actually assign to those buttons. Right. Yeah, I do too, especially with sports. Yeah. So while we're on the buttons and the controls, I want to come back to that in just a second. I'm going to go reset the camera so we don't lose the feed. I'll let you continue, but I want to talk about that for a minute because I did hear a comment today. Photo Me Ike did a Q&A with the camera, and he talked about the same thing, not having all the external buttons, especially down the left side or whatever. But I think we have to go back to, do we want a smaller body? And if we do, how many buttons and things are we going to be able to put on that small body? Do we want a DSLR size mirrorless? And everybody's not going to get what they want, so we just have to decide. If it's going to be the smaller body size, then there's going to be limited space or real estate for some of those controls. But I'll turn it back to you, Tobin, while I reset some cameras here. So go ahead, sir. Just saw your comment, Andy. Sorry, Tobin. Right. Well, yeah, yeah. I think that yeah, to shoot portraits. Yeah, portrait mode, I should say. Hey, folks. Tobin's his website. Let me get it in view here. Got to get it. If you want to go check out some of his work, he's going to tell you right now, hey, he needs to update some of the stuff that's on there. But I'll tell you, it's really good. His photography is fantastic, and if you want to see some of the work of the guy that's on the phone here, go check out his website. So, well, I'm pretty impressed. I mean, you know, it's commercial work, and I like it. Yeah. You know, that was initially one of the big draws, or at least one of the big selling points with the mirrorless cameras. And, you know, Sony won a lot of favor because so many people were talking about their back hurt. Their Yeah, Amanda's taking care of you there, Tobin. But people were talking about that, and then but now the cameras are out, and here we go with, well, it's too small. You know, folks, we can't have our cake and eat it too. We're just gonna have to, you know, live with some things. You know, I love my DSLRs. I have the D850, and I don't have a problem carrying it around. And that's a studio camera for me. You know, as far as portraits and everything go. I'm looking at these new Z cameras, especially the Z6 for the video. And I had talked to Tobin, just so you know, folks, and he's not a videographer, but I don't know if he actually got to play with it a little bit and look at the autofocus in video. But I'm sure there are going to be plenty of other videos come out about that. But you know, this is a hybrid camera. It's Nikon's first foray into a decent video camera. So, you know, I know that the next evolution of this is going to get better, but that brings me to a point because Nikon announced the Z6 and the Z7. Canon announced the EOS R, and it's a 30 megapixel camera, and we're not sure where it falls in. I mean, obviously, it's between the Z6 and the Z7 as far as megapixels, but are they going to release a higher end version? And when Tobin and I were talking last night, I'm not going to steal your thunder here, Tobin, but what did you have to say about the Z7, Z6, and Z7? What do you expect from Nikon? No, just the camera in general. We were talking about the viewfinder, the shape. Yeah, the square versus round. That was your comment. Right, the Pro flagship line. I think that I think the price is what caught people, and it's like, you know, if it costs this much, then that is the pro offering. It's too expensive for the average shooter or the amateur or whatever, and it shouldn't be priced that high if it's not pro. I don't know. And I kind of understand some of that, but you know, the Z6 is coming. It's cheaper, and it falls in line with all the other uh, lower tier mirrorless cameras in everybody else's lineup. So maybe that'll help calm that all that ruckus down a little bit. Um, good. Right. Right. And that's for stills, by the way. So we have to actually differentiate now because it may be different between video and stills. So, but you were using it with for still photography, correct? Right. I, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I like. I like the idea of being able to provide some stabilization for a lens that doesn't natively have any VR or image stabilization. And I'm curious to see, I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that, but to see if that actually helps out. I know it doesn't provide the five axis, obviously, but it does provide some stabilization for those lenses that typically do not have VR or IS or whatever. And that's been one of the complaints about the Canon is they didn't put IBIS in the body, and the lenses don't have VR or their equivalent IS or whatever it is. And yeah, I can understand people not being real happy about that. So, hey, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, and I'm not going to run Canon down here. It's not, I'm not going to run the company down here. They didn't put it in the camera. And early on, I was complaining about the fact that nobody really jumped all over that being an issue. And man, they just annihilated the Z7. I mean, everybody had nothing good to say about it initially, but and over time, it's going to prove itself, and it already has begun doing that. But Tobin, Dave asked a question a minute ago. Yeah, could you speak to that? Which Profoto models are you using? I have a set of D1500s, and that's the older version now. But what are you using for Profoto lights? Oh, okay, all right, yeah. I'd love to see a behind the scenes video of a commercial shoot like that. I think that'd be fascinating for a lot of people. A lot of things to learn from it as well. Yeah, I don't I don't know what their R&D program looks like. Profoto. I mean, obviously the products are phenomenal. They got a phenomenal price tag on them too, but you are buying quality. I think Godox and all the others out there may have pushed Profoto to kind of step up their game and put some of these new products out. Well, they've been around for years. A lot of people, I mean, a lot of pros were shooting alien bees. I can't think of his name now. The colorblind guy, just phenomenal. Did all the Nike work, Coke, and everything else. Does a lot of the HDR. Okay, folks, continue the conversation. I have no idea why my audio keeps dropping. What are you going to do? Yeah, I still have you. Hopefully everybody else can hear us. They should. I'm looking at the monitor and it looks like we have audio out again. So they haven't. The latency is just now catching up. So they should see it all come back. What are you gonna do? It's live. I'm a one man show. That's been one of the complaints by Sony shooters is the availability of triggers. So you did test the high speed sync with the Z7. Okay, okay. Oh, oh, oh. Right. Well, when you were talking about 400, oh shoot, shutter speed 1/400th and 4,000ths, I thought maybe you'd already tried it with the Pro Photo. Okay, okay, okay. Right. Well, that's something else. That's a whole conversation. A lot of people don't understand is when you're looking at lights, is looking at flash duration and everything else, which is why a lot of these lights cost so much. Um, Shoot, Electron and Profoto, right off the top of my head, um, and Broncolor. Yeah, yeah, you are paying for that quality. Although, again, I go back to for somebody that's just stepping in and you just can't afford, the best of the best, there's nothing wrong with the Godox and what's the other, I can't think of it. Adorama branded the Godox under their name. But anyway, it has some of or pretty much the same features. I just don't know if it's as good and how, what the lifespan will be on it. But still, there's still decent products. Anybody have any questions for Tobin? We're gonna wrap this up in about 9 minutes or so, or we'll go as long as you guys want to go, and Tobin will hang around. But if you got any questions, drop them in the chat real quick. Yeah. Right. Well, for studio, that's got to be great to show you what your ambient light's going to look like in the photo before you even fire a flash. That's got to be nice. Well, right. Hmm. Hmm. That's on the Z7. Okay. Right. It's showing you what you're going to get without knowing there's going to be a flash. Right. Wow. Hmm. Wow. Wow. Okay. Hmm. Right. Now, I've seen some comments where other people are doing the same thing. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Uh, right. You don't have to move your thumb, so you get a lot more latitude in what it's moving through. Yeah. 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 But yeah. It didn't have a label on it, so everybody was making up their own ideas of what it was. Got to have a label on it, or yeah, a lot of people are talking about that. Maybe the next iteration will go down that road. Photo Me Ike shot with it today, and it's got the face recognition. And I'm not going to say it tracks the eye. We don't know what it does, but it picked the closer eye in most of the photos, the portraits that he was shooting. So there's something there. I don't guess we can call it eye autofocus. Yeah, who knows? My wife's listening, so I can't say anything. Yeah, and I and And I understand that. If it makes things easier, I get it. I get it. We made it all the way to this point without eye autofocus. So I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not beating eye autofocus up. I'm just saying that we made it this far without it. But it would be nice if it were there. I agree 100%. I agree. But then you're forced to recompose, or you're trying to fight the joystick or something to move. Unless you're shooting off of the display on the back, you're trying to move the focus point or something else. So the eye autofocus takes all that away, so it's just automatic, and I get that. You know, I that. Yeah. No, yeah. Oh yeah, I don't disagree at all. You know, maybe I guess everybody's gonna have to find their own label for it. I think Canon had to come up with some kind of a label because they said that they, you know, the EOS R has something similar or whatever. But anyway, well, the EVF alone sounds pretty amazing. Yeah, I wish it'd make coffee. You haven't noticed I'm a big coffee drinker. Yeah, yeah. Hey, hey, Tobin, I don't want to dismiss. Darren asked the question here, and I don't know that you had a chance. We talked about it last night. We were talking about the yes. It, no, we can forget about Amanda. That's okay. I'm just kidding. See, honey, I'm not the only one that just wants to go out and shoot photos, and I can be all by myself for hours doing it, even if I don't get a photo. Keep talking, Tobin. I'm going to go switch cameras real quick. Go ahead. Before you go on to Darren's question, this whenever full disclaimer here, Amanda Pashuko Cross is my stepdaughter, and she's just a beautiful young lady, and very educated, and she's just in here. She's also a photographer. She'd rather be in front of the camera than behind it, I think. But she does have a camera, and she's getting ready to start her own live stream for her business. So anyway, I'll drop a link for that for everybody too. So yeah, what did I see? Something about it, the base ISO 64, maybe. I can't remember. Somebody doing a test. So it was down in the lower ISOs and then boosting the shadows. I can't remember. Banding or not. Yeah, there. Exactly, and that's been the argument because there are landscape photographers, and I understand that when you got a backlit scene, the sky's still bright, and the front side of the mountain or the mount, the mountain's dark. In landscape photography, they're trying to bring the shadow data back, and so that's their concern. I haven't seen a landscape photographer talk about the banding yet. That doesn't mean somebody hasn't mentioned it, but so yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Whoa. Right. So, so aesthetics aside, right now it looks comparable to the G Master. But your cursory look is okay. your cursory experiment with it's okay. And I know you're going to shoot some more with it and provide more data. And the reason I bring that up is because there's been a lot of controversy over the lens lineup for the Z cameras as well. I think a lot of it is aesthetics. Some people just don't like the looks of it, doesn't look professional, whatever. I never thought the Canon 24 to 105 looked professional with that smaller barrel coming out the end of the it's a good lens. I can't knock it, but if you oh. Well, that's been the other issue is the feel, the tactile piece to the lens. Some people are saying, well, it just doesn't. Well, yeah. Hey, it's the initial shock, and unfortunately for us in these days, as soon as the camera or the lenses come out and people start bad mouthing them, then it turns a lot of people away. They're not even going to consider it. They're just going to jump to something else and look at something else, and that's what bothers me. And that's the reason I was asking about, how comparable is it to the G Master? I know you don't have all the data for that right now, but just the fact that, okay, it looks good. I don't see anything glaringly wrong or bad or whatever. And that's good. And that's what a lot of people need to hear is, don't turn away just yet, A lot of these influencers, they have, their bias for whatever reason, and they have their brand of choice. But anyway, I'm about to go on a rant there. But on the lenses, I'm glad you brought it up. You shot with it a little bit and want to hear more about that. I think that. Go ahead. Wow, that's wow. I wonder why that is. That'll be interesting to figure that out as well, right? Well, that much closer, and yeah, and making the mount larger too, obviously, so that that and the flange distance make a big difference. Well, at least that's what the engineers were saying. Maybe you're seeing some of what they've been talking about because everybody's been making fun of that as well. Yeah, Yeah, that'll be interesting, especially to see if it's busy bokeh or bouquet in the back. Photo Me Ike, in his question and answer, he had a couple of videos that he showed today as he was using the camera and had some stills. And he's been shooting with the 35-1.8 and the 24-70 f4. And Woody just brought it up. He loves the lenses, and I think they just got a bad rap right off the bat because it didn't have a Ferrari branding on it or something, and it just looked like. Hey, you know what? I'm going to cut him some slack. It dawned on me why he is doing what he's doing. Why he was a Nikon fan. He still has Nikon cameras, and he'll talk nice about the D850 and I think the D500. Hates the D5, but anyway, I think that he jumped to the Sony to the Fuji stuff because it was easy to get a clan together. He's got a cult following there, following him just for the Fuji side. The Fuji shooters have felt left out in the cold as well for a long time. So all of a sudden, he jumps on the Fuji bandwagon and he's got this cult following that just absolutely love him, can't get enough of him. They do. All right. Yeah. You're about to convince me, but again, my wife's listening, so no, I'm not getting it yet, baby. Absolutely, and a lot of people make sure that they explain that or talk about it and the color rendering, this, that, whatever. Yeah, and even the Nikon software, Nikon's proprietary software for opening images. Everybody raves about how much better it is to open it with Nikon NXG. I can't remember. I've never used it. I probably should, and then do your editing wherever. But I've heard nothing but good uh, points and discussion about Capture One. So right, yeah, yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, it right. Or you can turn it off. I don't know why you would do that, but you can. Right. 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 Good. And I've heard that actually from another source as well. Good. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the things that Ike brought up was some of the people that were watching his live stream were talking about some of the flare, and he talked about it. The 3518 handled flaring real well. The 24 to 70, there were a couple of photos he had where it looked like there was some lens flare. It didn't, nothing looked terrible, but yeah, the S lenses. Right. Yeah. That's yeah. Mhm. Right. Yeah. Right. Right. So there was some CA. Okay. Well, I don't know that they have. I don't know what's going on because again, I haven't received any update, and I don't know if anybody in the whoever's left, anybody out there, seen the update to ACR or Lightroom or Photoshop for the Z7 for the raw files. I know people are okay. Okay. I get it. Right. And your computer's not going to lock up and get the spinning ball of death. Man. Yeah. Well, mm. Okay. Okay. Right. Well, Nikon claimed that the corner-to-corner sharpness was going to be exceptional on the Z mount lenses, so I look forward to seeing what you find. Well, right, right, right. Right, but I mean, but people are going to measure that by pixel peeping and putting up a target and looking into the corners, and so you're right. Your scene won't show that. Right, right. Hey, Tobin, we're up to 94 minutes, so I'm going to have to cut this thing off. We still have 7 viewers in here, and hey, folks, I appreciate everybody hanging in there. Does anybody have any last second question that Tobin might be able to answer for you? Woody, I see your question, and I'll hit that real quick as soon as we make sure there aren't any questions for Tobin. So I've got to give him a chance to respond here. Yeah. Right. Wow. Wow. Well, that's still a question right now. I know that the manual says that you can operate it while it's charging, or it will power it, or whatever, and then Right. But will it power the camera? So then you're still stuck with battery life even in a tethered situation. And that's what some people were talking about, how many batteries they've gone through tethering. Mm, okay. Yeah. If yeah, had had the operability not been there and the ergonomics been off and everything else, then I could understand there'd be a lot of complaining out there, and then none of us would be happy. I think some of it's just nitpicking because folks just want to complain about something, so they find these things, and or maybe it just doesn't fit into their workflow or whatever. And the camera is not perfect, but over time these are going to continue to get better, and we can expect a whole lot more from Nikon. I believe. I think they did a good job on their first iteration, really. So. And they don't the only thing they and the only thing they have to protect is their DSLR line, and eventually that's going to go. I don't mean the DSLR line, but that protection's going to go away. They're not protecting video or anything like that, so maybe we'll see some real super upgrades on the video side of the camera as well as this continues to evolve. Yeah, and I think that they jumped off. They had the advantage here in that they got to see Sony go through all their growing pains, and everybody will say, "Well, it's the first generation." No, it's not. It's definitely better than the first generation, and they'll say, "Well, it's the one card slot thing that make." No, no, no. The camera itself is probably mid generation for Sony, and it's going to continue to get better. And Canon will too. So I don't want to exclude them. And Fuji's doing a fantastic job. Panasonic's getting ready to jump into this with their cameras. It's going to be interesting for the next couple or 3 years just to see all these upgrades and everybody in the arena. So it Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's missing, it's lacking a couple of things, and that's what people are complaining about. But they'll get there. Uh, yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you what. That is probably what Sony needs to worry about, if anything. I don't think they need to worry about their A7 line. Those cameras hold their own, and they're going to. All the manufacturers are going to jockey back and forth with who's a little better with each iteration. But now, when we go into the Pro body or the flagship body in the Sony E9, when Canon comes out with their flagship mirrorless and Nikon, I got a feeling that they're going to be super competitive, and that's probably what Nikon needs to be, or not Nikon, but Sony needs to be concerned with. Yeah, the D single digit, yeah, the flagships. Yeah. And it remains to be seen, but when Nikon decides to put all that effort into the mirrorless side of the house, all that flagship technology into the mirrorless side of the house, yeah, that's going to be an exciting moment. Well, they hinted that there was another one in the pipeline, no time or anything like that. But they did hint that, oh, yeah, this isn't the end. Not meaning the end of the Z series, but there is the hint, there is a flagship that's coming. Who knows when? I'm thinking the Tokyo Olympics 2020. So, we may have to wait a little while, but maybe late next year we get to see something. Who knows? No, good. Yeah, they have. I'm not going to knock the camera, but man, some of the Sony shooters, oh wow. Uh, no, I'm talking about the obnoxious Sony shooters that just go everywhere, aggravating everybody. But anyway, the cameras, I can't knock the cameras. They're good cameras. Hey, I really need to wrap this up. And Woody had asked, he had asked a question about the availability on the. Yeah, it seems like though that there either one of two things has happened. The number of sales isn't as high as the D850 was, which is a possibility, or they have produced and shipped enough cameras to the U.S. side of the house to keep most people satisfied. So anyway, I can't answer your question, Woody, but I think it's somewhere in between those two. Maybe there were more cameras manufactured, and they are pushing more into the U.S. pipeline because on the European side, the D850's been available for a while. It's just here in the U.S. So I don't know. I think the cameras sell them well. It seems like it's in a lot of people's hands. So we'll see. Um, the Z7. And I could see that, but I think Best Buy they get a big portion, and I know Best Buy had it actually available the other day. It probably isn't now, but just the fact that it's coming and going, that's good news for people that really want to get it now, get their hands on it now. So hey, folks. Hey, Tobin, I just want to thank you, man, for being willing to step up, come in, give your opinion on the camera. I don't know how much information everybody got. I hope they got something out of the conversation here, because you're listening to somebody that's shooting the A7R in a commercial photography setting. For his living, and has the Z7, just got the Z7, and pretty positive, comments about what he thinks of the Z7, and I appreciate everybody hanging in here. It's been a long, long, long sloth. I know we're into an hour and 44 minutes, and I promise we're getting ready to cut it off. But again, now, you have anything you want to end with here, Tobin? Will you come back later after you've had a chance to really look at the camera and give us some more information? All right. And any questions anybody has, as soon as we finish the live stream and it's posted here on YouTube, drop any other questions you've got in there, so that maybe it prompts Tobin to look at that particular whatever it is that you want to know. So anyway, Tobin, with that, I'm getting ready to shut this down. But again, thank you very much for coming in here, hanging in here so long, and providing your insight on the camera. And I thought it would be interesting that, yeah, I thought others would be interested, because you can actually compare it to the competitor, if you will. And, hopefully, again, everybody got something out of it. And I'm not saying it's going to make a decision for them, but maybe it helps them to make a decision on, is this the right camera for them, the Z7, that is. So, folks, for all of you that or all that showed up, and anybody that happens to watch this later, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody, your comments and questions and everything else. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like, and maybe even subscribe if you haven't. And share it. If you don't like it, if I was too long-winded, boring, and everything else, then give us a thumbs down and drop a comment telling us why. But I sure appreciate people actually tuning in. So, yeah, absolutely, Tobin. Thanks for the valuable information, and look forward maybe here in a week or two, or whenever you have something else that's more conclusive. We'll do it again. If everybody wants to hear you again, then hey, maybe you can answer some of the questions. All right. With that, folks, thank you very much. God bless you all, and hope to see you next week. Maybe we'll do this a little later next week and not run as long. So you guys drop the time slot you'd like to see in the comments and let me know, and the time limit, and I'll try to adhere to that. So anyway, thanks again. Enjoyed everybody being here, and bye-bye. Yeah, we're still here. I think I'm trying to hang on a second. Everybody's watching this right now. There we go.